I am happy to make an announcement today. Considering that a lot of people are currently in a situation where they lose their jobs due to the corona crisis, I have decided to offer all of you who are in need of finding a job right now my online course on how to build your professional resume for free for the duration of this crisis. So I will share this course with you in the link that you can find in my bio. So go ahead, take the course and let me know. If you still need any help or if you have any questions afterwards. I'm really committed to help you find a new job, and I do not want to make money out of this situation and exploit you if you are in a difficult position right now. So go ahead, check out the course and let me know if you need any further help. Hello and welcome to my new online course. This is a do-it-yourself course where I teach you how to build your kick-ass resume. I will teach you now my method. It's a 10-step process which I've broken down for you in 10 short videos. You can rewatch the videos several times until you're sure you got what you need to do to update your resume. I am basing this course on my own old resume and the last job description or the last position that I applied for. As many of you probably know, I'm still full-time working in a pharmaceutical company as a life cycle manager, and I started to build Women's Career Lift as my side business about a year ago. So the resume and the job description which I'm about to show you are the actual resume and the actual position for which I applied about a year ago. And these are referring to a job that I hold at the moment. So let's get started with the first part of the 10-step process. So the first step to updating your resume is actually to really closely look at the job description and highlight the requirements which you already fulfill. So we're going to take the job description, we're going to ignore the responsibilities of the new role, and we're just going to focus on the minimum requirements. So what I did here, and this is also what you should do, is highlight the requirements that you already fulfill. This is, for example, education requirements, like here the university degree, or the language requirements, if there are any. Another point is the work experience. So do you have the relevant work experience? If maybe you don't have 3 years of work experience, you can just highlight that you have 2 years or something like that. And then, any other requirements that they have and that you fulfill, like here in my case, it was project management, the understanding of the pharmaceutical industry, and so on and so on. So first step, really simple and quick, just look at the job description and highlight the requirements that you fulfill. Okay, the second step is still not about writing your resume, but preparing all the content that you're going to put in your resume based on the job description. So we are going to look now at the job description, at the responsibilities of your future role, and we're gonna write down some concrete examples of your past work experience, which you can use for your resume. Here are a couple of examples which I already prepared for you. Basically, I looked at each of the points that they required and thought about a specific good example which fits with this exact point, with this exact requirement. So, for example, the first point they are asking for planning and delivering the program and the activities in accordance with the mission and the goals of the organization. Now, I could have chosen several projects here because I managed a lot of projects, but I chose this particular one because in this one, we were really focused on implementing our company standards and not customer-specific requirements. The other examples are a bit more general. So if you have a look here, it's not like from a concrete project, but it's like how I handled things in the past, like how I created a project plan, how I worked with other project managers, how I handled meetings, reportings, steering committees, escalations, etc. So this is basically what you do. You take the job description of the job that you're applying for, and you're highlighting or you're collecting a couple of bullet points that fit with the requirements in the job description. Now you can do this like I did on the computer in a Word file. You can also, of course, just take a pen and paper and note down the examples that you already fulfill. Good. Step number 3 is still about preparing for your resume. So it's not about writing and updating yet. What you're doing now is a gap assessment. So you're going to look at your old resume, like I did here, and you're going to highlight which of the things that you identified in the 2 steps before as relevant are going to fit now already in your resume. In my case, this was not much. So you can see here, it was really very little. So I had to do a major update of my resume. So what I did in the next step is I went back to the job description and then I highlighted in blue everything that I absolutely needed to include in my new resume. And I highlighted in yellow all the things that I could include in the resume if there was enough space. So that's what I want you to do now. Go back to the notes that you have taken in step number 2 and figure out what is the stuff that you absolutely want to put in your resume because it's very, very relevant. And then what are the nice to haves that you could add if you have enough space. So step number 3, again, you do the gap assessment and you figure out what needs to go in your resume and what can you leave out. Step number 4 is now finally about updating your resume. You can see I completely changed the template and the design of my resume, but let's not focus on that at the moment. We will get to that later. Now we're really just focusing on the content, the changes that I made to the content. So obviously I added the last 2 positions I had since I last applied for a job. And then I highlighted here in green so you can see it easily, all the information that I collected before in the steps 1, 2, and 3, right? So all that information that I considered relevant to add to my new resume is now highlighted here in green. Now you're going to see that there's also a lot of other stuff, a lot of other experience, which is not highlighted in green. Of course, your previous job will have been different from the one that you're applying for now. And you should not completely omit your previous work experience, especially if it can add value to your application. So in my case, for example, of course, my previous roles were all in team management. I was team lead, head customer service, team manager, etc. So there's a lot of additional text which is not directly relevant to the project management position. But it can still add value because as a project manager, I still need to lead a project team. And that means I still need to manage this team. It's even more difficult because they're not my direct reports. So I need to find even a better way to getting them to do the stuff that they need to do. This is why in this case, my leadership experience is also relevant. And this is why I kept it here in my resume. So this is what you need to do as well. You need to think about what are the experiences that are really required in that job position. but also what are the experiences that add value to your application. And those you should also add to your resume. So, step number 5 is now about having a close look at your resume and making sure that it is understandable also for outsiders. So, first of all, you need to sit down and you need to read through your resume with the eyes of an outsider and think if they will understand what you do all day and what you did in your previous jobs. This might also involve adding a little bit more detail to certain experience that you have so far. For example, I worked as a team manager in all my previous positions for 8 years, and I could have just written team management, but instead I made sure to specify that I was involved in recruiting because team managers not always are. Then I was taking care of performance reviews, target settings, shift plannings, etc. So a lot of different responsibilities can fall under team management. And it can be the same for you. If you're in sales, it can be business travel, in-house sales, whatever. So make sure you specify what you do all day. And the second part is to really look at abbreviations. So if you look at my resume here, I have a lot of abbreviations. Some of them are generic, like B2B, business to business is an abbreviation that everybody will know. But NTO, for example, and PLC, these are company-specific abbreviations. Now, if I apply outside of my current company, I need to change this. Either I need to remove them or I need to explain what they mean. And then down here, I have a lot of industry-specific abbreviations like GXP, GMP, GDP, etc., etc. And here also, if I apply outside of my current industry, I will have to explain these abbreviations. So that's what you need to do in step 5. You need to have a look. Is there enough level of detail that an outsider can understand what you did all day? And also look at abbreviations. Do you need to explain some of them? Do you need to remove some of them? And that's it. Good. Step number 6. In step number 6, we need to look at fine-tuning the language in your resume so that it reflects the language used in the job description. Why do we need to do this? Well, many companies are nowadays using so-called applicant tracking systems. These systems can automatically scan your resume for the relevant keywords. And if your resume does not contain the correct keywords, the system will discard your resume. So no person in that company will ever see your resume. This is why it is very important to adjust the language that you use in your resume to the language used in the job description so that the application tracking system will not discard your resume. Now, what I did in order to do this, as you can see here, and this is also, of course, what you need to do, is highlight wordings that they use in the job description to describe a certain task. For example, here I highlighted plan and deliver a program, develop and implement long-term goals, comply with the legislation, track progress, provide updates, etc., etc., etc. You get the point, right? Highlight the wording that they use, the words, the phrases, whatever, that they use to describe a certain task. And then you go to your resume and you just copy and paste the language that they're using in the job description and replace whatever you had before. In my case, I had project implementation planning, but because the job description said plan and deliver project, I put plan and deliver project. So I will show you this next to each other. So here you can see plan and deliver a project, I implemented plan and track, because here we were talking about tracking, and so on and so on, right? So I really adjusted the language to reflect what they had in the job description. And that's what you need to do. It's very easy. Just copy paste the phrases that they have into your resume to make sure that the application tracking systems will not automatically discard your resume because it's lacking the right keywords. So, step number 7. In step number 7, we're looking at the old resume to see if all the information is still relevant. And in my case, it was not. For example, I removed the date of birth and the citizenship because employers should really not care about that. In earlier times, I did not know better. I relied on templates that I found on the internet and they contained this information, but now I know better, so I removed it. Also, I moved the education in my new resume to the end because I already had 10 years of work experience. So who really cares about my education? And I also removed my secondary school because at that point, with that amount of work experience, nobody will be interested to which secondary school I went. So I just left the information about my degree, and that's it. And I moved it to the end. Also, if you look at my old resume, you can see that there's still a lot of information about my first 2 jobs. Of course, back then I had only 3 different roles, so there was a lot of information about the first 2 roles. Whereas in the second, or in a new version of the resume, I removed this. I really reduced it to the key points so that they have a bit of an idea what I did. I don't completely omit it, but it's not really relevant, so I cut it down to the minimum. Then what I also did, I made sure here in the new resume that I only included relevant trainings. I also basically had a thorough look at the photo, for example, because the photo, let's talk about the photo. I know in the US, it's an absolute no-go to have a photo in your resume. I know this. And also other English-speaking countries frown upon this. But in Austria and in Germany, where I used to apply, it's still a common practice to use a photo. So what I did, I changed the photo because the photo that I had in the old resume was really old and I was, much younger. I had 10 years were in between those photos. So I changed the photo. And that's what I want you to do now in this step. Step number 7 is really go through your old resume and make sure that you remove irrelevant information. That might be regarding your school, regarding student jobs, summer jobs, maybe also from your university time, you have a lot of information about publications. If that's not relevant for your job, for the job that you're applying for right now, please remove it from your resume. Step number 8 is now the step in which we look at your skill section. And we look at including all the relevant skills in your resume in a way that it's easy for the future employer to understand your skill level and your proficiency. In my old resume, I had listed my language skills based on this international classification A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. And then I had listed some PC software skills, stays abroad, interests. In my new resume, I focused more on the skills that I actually acquired in the 10 years of work experience. And I displayed my level of proficiency using these little dots here, right here, right? So on a scale from 1 to 5, how good am I in this particular area? So I listed, as you can see, project management, team management, customer service, etc., everything that can be relevant for this particular position. Then I did the same thing with my language skills, because it might be easier for someone who is just scanning through your resume to use these bullet points and then see what the level of your language proficiency is. I added the ones which were required in the job description, of course, German and English, but I also added the other languages that I speak, because that might be an advantage. Maybe I need to work with somebody in France or in Italy, and it also adds a point of interest to have, additional language skills. I added again my experience abroad, summarized it very briefly, the different places where I lived. And then I added courses and trainings, but only those which are relevant for the job that I'm applying for. So people management, interview techniques, change management, these are courses that are pretty relevant for the lifecycle management position. Whereas, like, for example, I did an Excel course at some point. This is irrelevant. This is not interesting. So I removed it. And then you can also add other points of interest. For example, I participated in the mentoring program in my company as a mentee first and then as a mentor. So I included this because this is something interesting that sets me apart from other people. This could also be special achievements like scholarships that you got in school, or special projects that you won, or whatever prizes that you got. Would be a good idea to list here in the skill section. So really take a look at your old resume, kick everything out that's not relevant, and structure it in a way that's easy to see for the employer what your skill level really is. Okay, step number 9 is when we finally look at the template and the formatting that I used. Of course, you noticed right away when we looked at my new resume that I completely changed the template and the formatting. There are several reasons for that. First of all, I wasted a lot of space in my old resume with personal information, then here a lot of empty white space, also here, there, and then I used more than half a page for all the additional bonus information. So if I had kept this format and I would have added all my new work experience, my resume would have been way too long. So this is the first reason. And the second reason is that the old resume looked kind of boring. I mean, it was easy to create. I just used a couple of word tables and it was not a big deal to create. But after I had interviewed so many people for positions as a team manager, I realized that 90% of the resumes look just like that. And with my resume, I want to stand out of the masses, right? So I need a resume that really stands out as well. And this is why I changed the formatting. I went to Google, I Googled modern resume, and then I picked this format because I liked it. You just go to Google as well, Google Modern Resume, browse through the templates that you can find there, and just pick the one that you like. I picked this one because it has this column here on the side where I can put all my skills and experiences and all this information, like the contact information and so on. That was taking so much space in my old resume. I also liked it because it has this profile section up here where I can give a short overview of who I am. And then I also liked the colors, or the idea with the colors, because colors make you stand out. I, in my case, chose blue because my company's logo is blue. So that kind of creates already a bit of a connection. You can, of course, also choose a color that really represents you as a person. Depends a little bit on the industry. So have a look, Google Modern Resume, and find a resume that really fits with your industry and the position you're applying for. I need to warn you, however, if you apply in the English-speaking world, and if you apply to big companies who might use these application tracking systems that we already talked about before, those systems are not so good with reading formatting. So they might have actually problems with this column here, and they might also have problems with different boxes. So if you put several boxes in your resume to display information, the systems might not be able to read it. It's the same for headers and footers as well. So if you apply for a company where you think they will use an application tracking system, then better stick with a more simple format and don't add so many columns or boxes or whatever, as this might really, not be readable for the applicant tracking system. All right. We are at the end of the course now, at the last step, number 10, and this is to double and triple check your grammar and spelling. After you've worked on this document for such a long time, it might be difficult to spot any mistakes. So my recommendation is to take a short break, have a coffee or whatever, and then come back with fresh eyes, because otherwise you risk not seeing the forest for the trees. Also, if you have the chance, let somebody else have a quick read through. Sometimes 4 eyes see more than 2, and that can be really helpful to spotting any mistakes. And that's it. That was the whole course. I hope you liked it. If you did, I would really appreciate if you could send me a short recommendation. Just tell me what you liked about the course, what was especially helpful for you. And I would like to put this then on my website to also help other customers identify if the course is right for them or not. If you didn't like the course or if you felt like there was something missing, please also reach out to me and tell me about it. I am always working on myself and my service, and I'm really looking forward to your constructive feedback. In any case, you can reach me on the Women's Career Lift at gmail.com. So also if you have other questions or comments, just send me a note and I'd be super happy to connect with you. Thank you and goodbye.